So I got started in the arts basically because I was a child who lived in a very small village in England, so I needed an imagination. All I had to do on the weekends was ride my bike around and just make up stories for myself. I would sit in my living room and, you know, put plays on and musicals. So it started then. Then my mother put me into piano lessons. And then she put me into classical guitar lessons. And then she put me into violin lessons because then I could be part of the orchestra. And so it just kind of became a side hobby, my only side hobby. You know, I wasn't a sports person. I just enjoyed the group camaraderie of it, and I was being noticed for it. I was very quick, I had a good ear, and I just continued. But I always wanted to be on the stage. I don't know what it was about it. I always wanted to be in movies. But, you know, I was this like little Indian kid living in England. Like, come on. Like, there's no way, right? Movies are huge. They're in America. It's just a world that I couldn't ever touch. I'd grown up in a family of doctors, so that was the only world I knew. And the only world that was respected, really. But of course, I'm Indian, so I grew up with Bollywood in my car. And I would get terribly car sick. So my mother would put on the music, and I would just, again, the imagination. And I would sit in the back of the car and hear this beautiful music and imagine that I was the woman in the sari in the snowy Alps, you know, without thinking, why is she in the Alps in a sari? But I just thought, it's so romantic, it's so beautiful. And I wanted to be that. Regardless, all of that was put aside. Music was a hobby. I went to college for pre-med. But I did a music minor. And nobody had allowed me to really sing till I hit my junior year of the end of junior year of high school, because you know, in every state you have honors choir, and it's a very high thing, and I got the highest score. I'd never taken a voice lesson. I just went to go do the audition because you know, I was a musician. I could read the music, and all I had to do was sing and hit the notes right. So then suddenly people are like, who's this girl? She's a violinist, like she can sing. I never got anything at school, which is so funny in high school, because now I meet all of my high school friends who got roles. And it's one of those, you know, those nerd moments when you're like, ha, gotcha. Very fast forward, I just auditioned for the musicals and the operas at school as a bio major, and I got into them. And so all these music majors are kind of like, who's this kid? And it just evolved that I got mentors who believed in me. I had a teacher called Miss Whitmer and Dr. Little at James Madison University, and they sat my parents down and they said, you know, we believe that she has something. And I remember that I had a huge talk with my parents, who, you know, were a doctor family, right? I was like, Mommy, Daddy, if you don't give this to me, then I'm my whole life. I have one life to live. You can't take this away. And strangely, they said yes, and it just evolved. So then I came to, I was a senior in college. I got into, actually, nearly every school I got an audition for. I was going to go to Eastman School of Music, and I went to Bayview Opera Festival in Michigan, and I met a certain Cliff Jackson. And suddenly this amazing man, who's this amazing musician, started to talk to me about a certain Everett McCorvey. And Everett McCorvey works at the University of Kentucky. Why don't you, when you're auditioning at Cincinnati, come through? And I was like, okay. For you, Cliff, anything. And I came through, and I met Mr. McCorvey, and Dr. McCorvey, and I mean, then I was in a car doing a 7-hour drive, you know, in August as a first-year master's student at the University of Kentucky. And again, the mentor thing comes in. Again, I had Dr. Everett McCorvey and Cliff Jackson mentoring me, making me into believing that whatever I wanted to do, I could do, which I think is very lacking in a lot of the very big schools. Because right after I went to Cincinnati Conservatory of Music, which was also an amazing experience in a different way. It was that I needed to be nurtured and grown, and then I needed to be like slam-banged into, you know. It's so funny, the girl who was the coloratura soprano in my artist diploma program just did her Metropolitan Opera debut, you know. It was that hardcore. But if I hadn't had the mentoring and the safeness and the love that I got at the University of Kentucky, my passion for music and for the arts wouldn't have been ignited, because somebody had to believe in me, for me to believe in me, because you're so young. So then I left all those schools. I went to New York and I hit the pavement. And thankfully I hit the pavement running. Ups and downs, you know, you always have your like 2 months off that you're like, temp job, no. Wait, I thought I was an artist. And then you get the next job. And I'd always wanted to be an actress. But again, there weren't Indian actors on television. There was nobody for me to see as a peer. So I didn't think I could do it. But I could sing and I could be anything. It didn't matter what the color of my skin was. I could play musetta, I could play Celine, I could do any of those things. But then I got lucky and I scored a lot of roles that were Indian and a lot of roles that weren't. And now it's just manifesting that journey.
So do you still sing?
No. Do I still sing? Sometimes in the shower, sometimes with Pandora. I put on the Broadway channel. My husband doesn't really like that. I feel it's helpful when I'm cooking. I want to. I think I haven't sung really in 6 years, so I'm a little scared of it. I actually think it would be easier for me to get jobs now as a singer. I think I could probably do a one-woman show if I wanted. But listen, this season we worked with Laura Benanti, who's a Tony Award-winning actress, singer, and when she's there, you know, in a trailer and you can hear her singing, you're kind of, you know, trepidatious about actually singing.
But how did you make the transition though, between like you started off as an opera singer and you were a singer, and then how did you get to the actress realm?
First of all, I think that I was always an actor-singer.
That's true.
I felt that I was always a girl who approached the role not purely vocally. I approached it as a scene study, as a character study. I wasn't as successful earlier because I didn't know as much, so I made sure that I took acting classes. Throughout all of my degrees, I took acting classes. They were a requirement in certain places they weren't, but I went out of my way to take the classes because I understood that I needed to be very strong in that area. I wish I'd taken more, actually, but the transition happened because I was lucky. I wish I could say that there's a formula. There isn't. I was, bizarrely, a friend of mine called Chase Jennings, who was at the University of Kentucky, he was an intern at Telsey Casting. Telsey is a huge casting agency in New York, does all of the Broadway shows. And he told me he was up there, and he told me about Bombay Dreams. I was still at Cincinnati. He's like, you should audition for the show. It's Indians. And I'm like, I'm an opera singer. I don't do musical theater, right? Stupid. Regardless, then I went to school, and then when I got to the city, I called him, and I said, listen, I need work. I need to do something. I don't even know where to start here. And here's the big advice I'd say. When you are a starter off in New York, you get yourself together with other people who are starting off on the other side of the camera. So if there are interns and PAs in the casting agencies, make sure they're your friends, because what do they want to do? They want to bring the next big thing into the office, right? So he knew somebody at CESD, which is one of the biggest commercial agencies in New York. That person was an assistant, his friend, who he'd worked with somewhere. He gave her my headshot. She was like, wow, we don't have a lot of Indians on our roster. She gave it to her boss. The same day, I was in Starbucks in Union Square. I literally was told, go to CESD, which is on the 20th floor, I think, on Park, 235 Park, I think. And go up to this assistant, and hand your headshot. And that's exactly what I did. I walk downstairs, I go to the Starbucks on 14th Street, I get a call from her boss. Hey, CSD would be really interested in representing you. And I hadn't even moved to the city yet, so I'd already gotten commercial representation. That was luck. That was someone believing in me, themselves doing their journey, and then hoping that I can help them. Then it just kind of rolled in, because that girl who I gave that headshot to became an assistant to a manager who manages Chandra Levy, who on Grey's Anatomy. who has other, you know, she's someone that I wouldn't have been able to get into a room with unless I knew that assistant. What did I have on my resume? She came to see, then I decided, you know what, I don't have any plays. I looked in, I actually did the actor thing. I went to Backstage and I saw this play. And it was, I've forgotten the name of it, but Pakistani girl required, no pay, Theatre of the Stars. It's a well-known, very low-budget theatre. So I was like, I remember the audition was in this warehouse, and I thought to myself, you have to tell anybody you know where you're going, because this is like a terrible New York story. And I showed up, and there was this very sweet man, but very a different type of person. It was his play. I did the play. It was quite an experience, but because I had something to show, I told the manager to come and see me, and she came, and she saw me doing something. Luck again. She takes me to a deli around the corner. Okay, what do you want to do, kid? What do you want to do? I said, I want to be an actress. She's like, let's do it. So then I have a manager. What's my manager's job? My manager's job is to get me an agent. So then I didn't have to go do the rounds. She got me the agent. So I guess my whole point of this is that I got a lot of luck. But when the luck came, I had to be ready for the luck. So, and sometimes I wasn't. You know, when I did my first TV audition, I had no idea. They're so different. And I should have, if I could do it again, would probably have taken more classes and gotten more used to it. But luck again. Everything, you know, lucked out, and, you know, that's kind of the actor's life, I think.
But don't you think that you also were, you were preparing along the way, just in terms?
Well, they always say that, don't they? They always, you have to be prepared for your destiny, because your destiny will come. And it's just when. So the moment that you hit school, you're preparing for that. The moment that you walk out of your door, it could be the call. And it's still the way. I still have the call at 5:30 at night, or 7 at night. Oh, here you go, Reshma, 9 pages of sides. The audition's tomorrow. It's in front of the full creative team. What are you talking about? I can't memorize 9 pages in a night and give it justification here. You know, I can't do it. Doesn't matter. I've got to be prepared to do it, because somebody else will. So.
Because a lot of people think that it's easy to just go to New York and get a gig.
Good luck. You know, it's some people it is easy. I think talent does win. I really do. I think longevity of career is talent. But you have to deal with a lot of things. Some people get things because they're beautiful, and they don't have any talent, and they will have a career and make a lot of money. But will it be a long career? No, but they'll make so much money that it doesn't really matter, you know. But it depends on what you want. You don't have to have a career that you are the star. I have lots of friends who are so happy being in Met Chorus, being on Broadway Chorus, and that's what they do. I have people who are happy being on soaps. I mean, it's very, I was talking to somebody about that recently. So they was criticizing an actress, and I just went, you know what? Entertainment has many facets. One of them is artistry and moving art form and moving and changing. And one of them is just pure entertainment. You've got people who go to work, have a horrible day, and they just want to put on something that makes them laugh. So who are we to judge that an actor does those things? You know, so you have to learn. And I've been one of those frou-frou girls who's like, this is beneath me. I don't think you can think like that. I think you have to do it for yourself, and then the outcome for other people is your justification for doing it.
Well, look what would have happened had you thought that that show, that theater play, was beneath you.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have had the...
Yes, and I would laugh in the middle of it. Like, I would literally be like, I cannot believe I am doing this. But I learned so much doing it. And I wouldn't have gotten my manager if I didn't do it. So everything is for a reason. And in New York, when you're young, you just got to be hungry. And you've got to force yourself to go into that room that's so scary and show you. I still battle with that. Today, I still battle with that.
So
it's
tell
very
us
hard.
a little bit about Royal Pains and how that came about. And And
well, Royal Pains has just been, like, for any actor, you know, it's a gig that has lasted as long as Royal Pains has lasted is very rare. Royal Pains was just a regular audition. I remember that it came through, and I read the breakdown for it. And breakdowns, if people don't know, are the lists that go out to the casting directors of the descriptions, what they need. And the name was Divya Sharma, and it was a 26-year-old, very intellectual, a physician assistant. And I saw the breakdown, my agent sent it to me, and I was like, this is me! I've got to get this. So I had to go to NBC to audition. And NBC is a very intimidating place because you have to go to 30 Rock and you go upstairs through everything, the security, you could maybe see someone famous, and then you have to walk down this very long hallway, and then this very small, like, waiting area. And you're at NBC. So even now, I'm just like, no, this is awful. I hate this. So I went into a room and I auditioned. I did an American accent. And I got a callback. But I didn't get a callback for 2 weeks. Because when you're in New York, most of the time they're casting out of Los Angeles and they put it all on video and they send it. So for 2 weeks I didn't hear anything. So that's very unusual. So I thought to myself, who got it? I actually was just like, who? On the internet. Who? Possible? Who? And then I got a call back to say the director, Jace Alexander, again, mentor, believer, wants to meet you. And for a second I thought he was the guy from Seinfeld. I don't know why, because they're very similar names but they're spelled differently. And so then I was expecting to see him, and I saw this other person. I'm like, oh, okay, good. That's better, I think. And I didn't know that this director is actually a very prolific, well-known director, which is also good. Better to not know. I did the audition again at NBC, and the best part about it was he heard my British accent. And he said, wait, so you're not American? I was like, no. He's like, you're British? And I was like, yes. And we started talking about it, and then we started talking about my father being in medicine. And I kept harping on that because it's a medical show. And then the next day I get a call from my agent saying, you're flying to Los Angeles tomorrow. You have a screen test for this. It's my very first screen test. I didn't know what that meant. So I get a car that comes to get me, my very first car, that I was like, what? And it takes me to the airport, and I get off the plane, and there's a man holding a sign, Reshma Shetty, and I get into another beautiful car, and I'm taken to my hotel room, and I walk in, hello, Reshma Shetty, and I'm just like, what is this? This is amazing. And I'm downstairs, and I'm like luxuriating at the pool, and the next day is the audition at NBC. And NBC LA is this huge building that you can see going down the freeway. I go again. I'm horribly nervous, and then I walk into the room and I realize that the two other girls that are up for the role are in the same room as me. So here we are, waiting outside with our competition. Now, the other thing people need to know is before you do these things, you get a contract. So you know how much money you're losing. So you're all sitting there going. So then the first girl goes in. We're literally sitting here, and the room's here, so you can hear everything. And me and the other girl start talking. She was actually a lovely girl. And I hear them all laughing. And I'm just like, and the worst part is Mark, who's obviously the lead of our show, knew her. Like when he was coming in, he was like, hey, and she's like, hey, and I was like, it's over. It's over. And she walked in, they all laughed, she walked out. Then they asked her to come back in. And again, we're like, it's over. It's over. So then she comes out, and then I go in. And I remember that I sit down in a seat just like this, and Mark was sitting on a couch like this. And then I had 40 people, which I didn't also realize. It was one of those conference rooms, all up in the theater levels, right? So I was like, look, I came from New York. You better all laugh. And they all started laughing. So I felt a little better. And then myself and Mark did the scenes. And it became fun in that instant. It was one of those moments that I was like, okay, I had a good time. So then I left. The other girl goes in. she leaves, and then make us wait for a second, and they're like, okay, thank you. So then we're done. So then I go back to my room. I call my then boyfriend, and I'm like, it's over, I didn't get it. And I get into my car again. I go back to the airport. I'm like, Selah, see you later, car. And get out of the airport. Another car's waiting. I'm like, hi, lost time. Thank you for making this really fun. And I get into my apartment. I see my boyfriend. I lie on the couch for 5 days because I'm just annoyed at the world. And then I'm with my best friend, and I get the phone call. And it says, you got it. And I started crying.
Wow.
Because I had never made money like that. First of all, I was like, yes, I could pay my bills. And then I was just like, what does this mean? Like, what does this mean? And at the time, the pilot, her role was the 4th series regular. 6 days of shooting. That's all I did. And then it was done. And I was like, see you guys later. Great, great. Because you don't know if it's picked up. Mm-hmm. Then you got to wait. Then it's picked up. I still didn't understand what that meant. I was like, okay, that's great. That means more money, right? And that means I'm working, right? That's great. So we got picked up, I think, for 12 or 13, I don't remember. By the 4th episode, Mark comes up to me into my trailer. And Mark was amazing through the whole procedure because he knew that I hadn't really done very much television. And he would say very simple things, like we'd be in a scene and I'd want to move around too much. And he would say, you know, Resh, when we do close-ups, it's usually better if you're very still. You know, you don't need to, because all this thing is so they don't know what you're doing here. And, you know, now I have Uggs on now, and, you know, I'm just like, are we done now? I mean, you know, it's much more, it's not as daunting, obviously. But he was great about it, and he went into my trailer, and he sat me down, and he said, I just want to tell you, I have done so many shows, so many pilots, and I've been through all of this. This is really special. The show's really special, and I think that we actually might be able to be on this show for a long time. And again, I didn't know what that meant. To me, I was just so thankful as a young actor to have a job in such an amazing crew and cast and all this stuff. And then it just manifested, you know, and then it became something that, not that you take it for granted, but that you understand that it's a job, you know, and you have to do your work for the job. And you always have to be on. You can't not. You have 60 people depending on you and a $3 million budget per episode. That's not a doable thing. But then you realize it's a job. And, you know, you get used to it.
So now you're in your 6th season?
We're coming up on our 6th season. It's really, honestly, like a godsend of a show. The network is an amazing network. They have really... they do other things. We have a Characters Unite program, which they use a lot of the talent from USA shows. We collaborated with The Moth. I think they have The Moth in Kentucky. Storytelling. And I went to Denver one time, and these amazing people that say stories for 20 minutes about their lives. The point of the whole campaign for USA is diversity and stopping bullying, and it's no other network does that. You know, there's a big social aspect to the network. As USA fans go, they're so wonderful and so supportive. As a cast and crew go, I couldn't ask for a better cast and crew. Our crew are like my buddies. They look after me. My cast are my friends. I'm very, very blessed.
So if you had to say 5 points that you wanted to give to young performers who are just starting their journey into the performing arts, and because you've crossed over to many, you know, you were an instrumentalist, you're a singer, actress, you know, you've done so many things in the performing arts. So what 5 points would you give young performers to help them to ready themselves for the profession?
Not in any specific order, because of course it's just, I'd have to put a lot of thought to give 5 main points, so I might miss something. But I would say that what comes to my head straight away is, number 1, physical appearance. If you're going to be a performer, you've got to understand that you are fantasy to people. And fantasy requires sacrifice. Unless you are naturally a certain way. Sacrifice means that if you are overweight, you cannot be. Unless you're a character actor. If you don't look after yourself, you cannot do that. You have to be on top of it because there's someone else who is. Number 2, study. Continue studying. I'm taking an acting class starting. I'm actually missing it. My first class. I already apologized though. On Sunday, keep the art up. When you leave school, you have not learned everything. In fact, you learn a lot on the job, actually. But keep it up. Number 3, a huge belief in yourself has to be maintained, even on your lowest days, because you will get more rejections than you can possibly take. And the most amazing comments. I felt she was really cold in the audition. What are you talking about? It was the first time I did Shakespeare. I mean, stuff like that, that you can't take personally. And it's hard. Number 4, have a really strong understanding of what it is that your goal is. Understand that, yeah, you have a music degree. What does that mean to you? Are you going to be okay being a teacher? Are you going to be okay being a waitress and struggling? Are you going to be okay having to sacrifice what you have to sacrifice? And I guess number 5 would be, there's so many. I said the studying thing, but getting a support group around you, I think. I've had to pay people to come do lines with me because after a while I realized that I cannot bombard my husband and my sister as my line readers every day, I could do it for hours. They have a life. So I have to get that system around me. And, you got to be kind to yourself because if you're not, New York and Los Angeles will eat you up. And I think you've just got to know there's always someone better. There's always someone prettier. There's always someone more talented. But you've got to find what you're really good at and what you convey. And I'm still doing that. I'm still trying to understand what is it that I do better than anybody else. And then luck. And you just got to accept it. You just got to be ready. And you've got to want it. If you don't want it more than anything else in the world, because your family will suffer, your friendship relationships will suffer, you've got to want that thing so bad. Don't get into it if you don't want it. There's so many easier lives to live. Last point, understand that it's okay to let go of it. Understand that just because you think you are this, life is not that. Life is so many other things. And it doesn't make you less that you didn't, get your star on Walk of Fame or whatever. You just do what you're supposed to do and do really well. And destiny will find you.